Welcome back, guys. If you haven't done so, go to the videos in the description and set up your environment. So in chapter 7, we went over the two options that we actually made a video on: ECM setup and local installation setup. I haven't went through the Docker installation because you can go by yourself. But the point is, for you to continue with this video, you have to have all these elements installed. Which is an instance of Jenkins, NiFi Registry, and these three instances of NiFi. But what we're gonna do first, we're gonna create a new item, and we're gonna create a new folder, and let's call it NiFi for the sake of this this whole demo. And the name is gonna be NiFi, and apply and save. Once inside this folder, let's create our first pipeline to interact with our NiFi registry, right? Because we have the NiFi registry, and then we have the toolkit that it's, so if you're gonna go here, let's go clear, and let's go to our OPT folder. You see here we have the NiFi toolkit. So if you go to NiFi toolkit, for whatever reason you want to manually test it, let's go to binary. In here, you want to use the client.sh util here. Basically, this creates the default session that is set into this, let's say, hidden file, or it's a one-time file. So if I were to, let's say, copy this and exit, let's see what he points us to. Basically, he sets some default keys, which is the NiFi registry and the NiFi props. So if you see here, he picked up some of our configuration that are there. So if we're gonna do, for whatever reason, he picked the production ones first. So if let's see if this file exists. So yeah, the file exists. Is the one that we created during our, you remember here when we created the files. Cool. So let's jump back into our client, and I'm not gonna write this by hand. What I'll do here, I'll go to Jenkins pipelines, and I'll just copy a command that will actually, you know what, let's actually type it manually. So if you want to list the commands, this is, I'm not gonna do, it's just a short intro. I'm just gonna say NiFi and help. This is going to give us a full list of all the commands that it supports. So in this case, what we want to do, we want to just test that we have connectivity between our registry, not registry, our toolkit and the NiFi instance. So what I'll do here, I'll just do get root ID. Basically, sorry about it. Basically, what this is going to do is going to go to the default NiFi instance that we saw that it had in the session. We can even see session show. So basically, to this default property, and he's going to get the root ID of the main folder in camera. So if you see here, this ends in 2AB. We go here to production. Yeah, it ends in 2AB. Basically, it's not staging, nor dev. Now I want to switch between them. How would I do that in here? And that's where the properties come in place that we've created. You remember we created these entries. So basically what you want to do here, let's just leave it here. Let me go to read NiFi and just copy this. Basically, there you have to set the session. What I'll do, I'll just copy this. This is part of the Jenkins pipeline, and we're going to demonstrate next how Jenkins will use the NiFi client or the toolkit to communicate with our instances. So basically, if I want to set my properties for staging at this point, I can basically do this. And if I'll do again show session, it tells me that my NiFi properties are set to this particular configuration file. And if I'll do again NiFi get root ID, I should get a different UUID. So you see, I'm no longer getting this. basically going to staging, this is what we're getting. This is the new canvas, main canvas UUID. All right, so now I demonstrate that we have connectivity between our toolkit and our NiFi instances. Next, let's test the registry. The registry pretty much the same. If we're gonna here, you're gonna go here, you see you have this NiFi registry. The way you do it, basically the same form. You set the session property for this particular key and you point it to the file that we've created. So this is our NiFi production. Basically, we only have one registry. Now, what we want to do, you want to type registry and let's say list buckets, basically. We don't have any buckets created, and this is going to return us nothing. But it didn't give us an error, so that means he went back and forward from the instance and he was happy about it. Now, let's see how we can run this through Jenkins, because ultimately that's the whole goal, you know? We don't want to do it in production in the UI. We might F it up. So going to Jenkins here, let's go and create a new item. And this item is going to be a pipeline. And let's call it test. Let's just call it test config. And it's a type pipeline. All right, cool. Now what you want to do here, you remember we have everything in our GitHub. So if you go here to GitHub and you go to our Jenkins folder, you have a couple of pipelines that I've created for the purpose of this demo. You want to go to this read NiFi folder pipeline, I would say. And here you want to copy the path for this this file. You want to go back to Jenkins and choose here from the definition. You want to say that it's a script from SCM. The type of SCM is going to be Git. The service, the repository URL, we're going to copy it and put it here. And then the Jenkins path, file path, you want to point to that file that we just copied. Now we're going to go back to the repo, to the main folder. We're going to copy this URL and where is it? The repository, or since it's a public one, we don't need any credentials. In here, you want to make this change from master to main. Now we're going to save this. I apply and save. Let's do a dummy build. Let's say build now. So this is going to trigger a build for us. All right, so I'll walk you guys through what this script does here, basically. Going back to Jenkins pipeline and read NiFi, basically what it's doing, he's just going to test against he's going to test to what we just did, get root ID and then list buckets. But one thing we have here, we have parameters. And these parameters, you see right now, we're going to get an error because he's like, okay, not, okay. Right? If we go here and say build with parameters, now what we want to do, this is going to be our production registry, and we want to see the root ID for the NiFi div in this case. And if we're going to go to our okay, add local, and you can see this one run with success. Basically, nice. So we can see that we got the first. This is the response from the get root. So you remember we chose dev instead. With dev. So that's the main root ID, right? In here, we didn't get any response back because basically there's no buckets there. So this pretty much validates our first pipeline. Now let's go back and create another one. So basically go to the folder and let's create a new item here. And this one, let's call it let's look into the other pipelines that I've created. So it's going to be create bucket. So let's call it create registry bucket. It's going to be a type pipeline and click OK. we just to show you guys how we can create the bucket here. Basically, once it's installed, and if you go to settings here, you can manually create a bucket. So I'll say new bucket, and that's it. The bucket is created, but that's not the goal. You know, when you're in a let's say enterprise environment, you don't want to go and click around it. You know, people might make mistakes. You want to do this through code changes and code review, approvals, and other stuff. So that's why we use Jenkins for this purpose. Now, what we want to do here, we want to go to the same steps. Change it from pipeline script from SCM. You want to go to this folder and copy the path. Let's go back to, let's go down where we have to declare the script path. It's going to be from main. And here the repository, let's copy this address. Be mindful when you're gonna do this on your own, make sure you clone and you create your own repository. I might go about and make changes in my destroyer pipeline. So consider that. So let's run a first build. You see right now, we're not seeing the parameters, though this job has parameters. First build, I think it's where it recognizes. Now you can see build with parameters. Probably this will fail because yeah, he will expect incoming parameters. If you go to console log and you can see, let's find the error. Yeah, he's expecting parameters for these two placeholders. All right, so go back to our project and say build with parameters. Now I put this drop down for registries, though we only have one, but you know, this will help you guys to have multiple environments. So our bucket is going to be demo, and there's going to be demo for NiFi CI/CD. Cool. And let's pick the build. What this should do, it should go to the registry and create us a new bucket. So going to the console output, we can see that it's already been successful, and he created this new bucket here. We're gonna go and do a refresh on it and go to our buckets. We can see that a new bucket was created. So description, the input bucket. So now we managed to create a bucket through the medium of Jenkins pipeline. Now, going to the next step, and this is going to be the final one, we're going to see how we can go through a situation where I'm going to create a flow in my staging environment. So let's go ahead and create a process group, and it's going to be called AAA process group, right? Now, I'm going to jump in this process group and add something to it. So I'm going to say, I'm just going to generate a flow file every 60 seconds. And the output of this is going to go into a log attribute. Basically, we're throwing it away, but just for the purpose of this demo. And I'm going to disable this. All right, so at this point, we have this processor in staging, but there's one last step that we forgot to do. You remember when we talked about going to the scripts at the final step here, we have to add, we forgot to do this actually, to add the registry clients to our NiFi instances. So the way you would do, basically, you want again to run this things, create these variables in case we missed it. And let's run this command. So first, we're going to run it for prod. Basically, this is going to, all right, so he ran it with success. So what it happens here, if you go to production, I'll do a refresh. If you go to this burger menu, controller settings, and registry clients, this is what it does programmatically. So if you go to staging and we're going to go to the same steps, you're going to see nothing is here. But if we're going to go back here to the scripts and actually run the staging in dev, so we can see that he already added the staging and dev. going back here and you're going to do a refresh here, we can see that the registry was added with this name, PRD. And same for there. Cool. So now we're ready to go full-fledged on our Jenkins and NiFi integration. Where we're going to go next, we're going to create our last pipeline for this chapter. So we're going to create a new item, and let's see what is the name of this Jenkins pipeline here. It's called import flow. So what we're gonna do, pretty much what it says, we're gonna through the use of NiFi registry, we are going to import this staging flow into our production without having to touch the UI in Canvas. The only thing is gonna happen is gonna go through this Jenkins interface. So import NiFi flow. Flow. Going to be of type pipeline. All right, so we're going to go the same steps, right? SCM, go here, select, copy the path. Come on, buddy. Git. Oops, sorry. My scroll went bananas. Deploy, go to main, and let's paste in the URL to our repository. Cool. And now we're good to go. Apply, save. Let's run a first dummy run. Build now again for Jenkins to pick up on the parameters. I'm gonna do a refresh on the page. We can see now. Let's fail this parameters. Now, if we were to run, nothing would happen. Filled with parameters. Basically, let me just go here. Sorry, workflow. I should have more variables here. If we go to chapter 7, Jenkins pipelines, and sorry, I think I've imported the wrong one. So copy path. Let's go back to configuration. Yeah, I imported the wrong one. It's not create bucket, it's import flow. Cool. All right. We have to add another dummy run. Let's go up and for NiFi flow, deal with parameters. Just for the sake of this, I want it to fail. Basically, go through an iteration of script run. Let's do a refresh. Okay, now we have the full set of parameters. Let's cancel this one. So right now, what this is going to do is going to look into our registry to see if we have anything in our bucket. Basically, let's go to the step. Let's say you're a developer, you reach to the staging layer and you're happy. I'm gonna put my flow and I'm gonna start versioning it basically. So you're gonna go click right on your process group, start version control. See, he connected here, identify the buckets that I have. I'm gonna add this flow to my demo bucket. My description, and pretty much just leave it at it. Cool, so right now this is version. And if we go to the registry and click on this bucket here, actually close this interface, we see that right now we have one flow that it's in version mode. And it's at version 1 and it's in this particular bucket. So this is all the information we basically need to run our Jenkins. If we go to production, we can see that we have nothing here. Now let's go and do the deployment of whatever was in staging into production. So basically we're going to choose the registry that we want to deploy from. What is going to be our target? It's going to be production and the bucket name that my flow resides. So it's in my bucket demo. My flow is AAA, you remember. AAA flow, and flow version, we're gonna put it as 1. And then I had it here, you want to enable the flow or you want flow to start. So I'm gonna leave this as yes, yes. Basically, it's gonna enable all the services if there are any control services, and then he's gonna start the flow. All right, let's go inside the console log and pretty much observe what happens. You see, we set up the session here. Sorry, we set up the session. That's not gonna work. Then he will like find the bucket identifier. Everything in the backend it's through UUIDs. It will list the flow in that bucket, will capture my flow identifier, which is AAA, and then he will run the import command. All right, so we can see that he already imported. If we go to NiFi, oh, there you go. We already have one in NiFi production, and it's at this point it's in stop stage, and we do some validation on the components, and after that he will start this. He will start. If you see here, this start process group. Go here, and we're going to do a refresh on the canvas. We can see that the process is in starting state, and we already have data flowing through. Then we set up our local Jenkins. And once we did that, we created 3 pipelines, one to test our configuration, one to create a bucket against the registry, and one to import one flow file from the NiFi registry into our production environment. And we run a, how you call it? We run a validation test against the component that we deployed. And after that, if everything was valid, we've promoted it and started it. All right, cool. So I hope you guys enjoyed this tutorial. If you have any comments or suggestion, feel free to drop them in the comment section. Until next time, I see you guys.